The removal of the great dragons from the Iron Throne was a cause of celebration for some, but to others it was a dark day indeed. The great sun and spear sigil of House Martell was cast into shadow after the sacking of King's Landing, for their precious Princess Elia was dead. Wife to the deceased Targaryen prince, and mother to his murdered children, Elia was killed and violated by a cruel man who served a hard-hearted lord. Rumor of these reviled acts soon found their way to Dorne, and eventually to the ear of Elia's younger brother and best friend, Prince Oberyn Martell. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Oberyn loved his sister dearly, and vengeance became his only motive. He would have his revenge, even if it cost him his life. So, who exactly is Oberyn Martell, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Oberyn Martell was born in 257 or 258 AC to the Princess of Dorne and her prince consort. He was the youngest of 5 children, though his would-be older brothers Mors and Oliver died in infancy. His surviving siblings were the Prince Oberyn Martell, who came to inherit Dorne, and the Princess Elia Martell, who was only a year Oberyn's elder. As children, Elia and Oberyn became quite close, developing a great bond of friendship only close siblings could produce. They were separated for a brief time, as Oberyn was sent to be fostered at Sandstone. However, they were soon reunited, leaving Dorne in tow of their mother to find Elia a suitable match for marriage. With his mother, sister, and a grand caravan, Oberyn saw much of Westeros outside his home, as they visited Oldtown, the Arbor, Starfall, Crakehall, and the Shield Islands. At every stop, Oberyn mocked his sister's suitors, undoubtedly spurning them away from her at least in part. Their final destination before returning home was the great castle of the West, Casterly Rock. As Oberyn once recounted, he and the rest of the Dornish party arrived very soon after the death of Lady Joanna Lannister, and the palpable grief of the Great Lions was still fresh. The late Lady of the Rock had agreed with Oberyn's mother to either wed him to Cersei or Elia to Jaime, but Lord Tywin refused. With his wife departed from the living world, he had no reason to heed such a proposal anymore. He explained that his daughter Cersei would be wed to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, and instead offered his newborn son, the dwarf boy Tyrion, as a suitor for Elia. Insulted to the core, the Dornishman turned swiftly for home. There Oberyn stayed as he grew into a teen, during which time he became quite a troublemaker. At 16 years old, he was caught sharing a bed with the paramour of Lord Edgar Ironwood, who challenged him to a duel. Because of Oberyn's status as a Prince of Dorne, the duel was to first blood, and he heartily accepted. Both men were wounded by various cuts during the skirmish, but while Oberyn escaped ultimately intact, Lord Ironwood was not so lucky. His wounds festered, and he soon succumbed to them, dying as a result of a simple non-lethal duel. From this incident, Oberyn universally gained the nickname of the Red Viper, or simply the Viper, for rumors swirled that he'd used a poisoned blade. Turmoil stirred in Dorne with Lord Ironwood's death, so as atonement, House Martell sent Oberyn to Oldtown and then on to Lys as a sort of exile, though the Viper hardly thought of it that way, and also granted Lord Ironwood Prince Quentyn Martell as a ward, as he was the eldest son of Prince Doran. As Oberyn matured into adulthood, his reptilian nickname grew to fit him well. He held the features of a traditional salty Dornishman, including a tall and graceful figure, a lined face with thin eyebrows, a sharp nose, and shining black hair that receded in a widow's peak. His eyes set him somewhat apart, though. They were black and appeared like that of a viper. Oberyn was athletic and quick as a water snake, both from genetic inheritance and from years of serving as a fighter. He was often described both by family and foes as being fierce, rash, unpredictable, sharp of tongue, and even half mad. Another of Oberyn's most recognizable traits was his pursuit of pleasure. But when not focused on war or love, the Viper held a love for fine horses. He handpicked his own steed, which was jet black and possessed a mane and tail that appeared as fire in the wind. During his exile, Oberyn traversed the free cities, becoming well versed in poisons and maybe even darker arts. He studied at the Citadel in Old Town as well, forging 6 links on his chain before becoming flippant and bored of the practice. Ever the warrior, he joined the Second Sons across the Narrow Sea for a time, and even formed his own company in the Disputed Lands. However, when tensions settled over the debacle with Lord Euronwood, Oberyn returned to Westeros. Once home, he continued his pursuit of carnal pleasure, sleeping with both men and women, most notably Sir Daemon Sand and his beloved paramour Elia Sand. From multiple different women, Oberyn fathered 8 bastard daughters, dubbed the Sand Snakes, though the 4 youngest were all born to Elia. Instead of casting out or shunning his bastards, Oberyn accepted them into his life and taught them of the world, of politics, and of fighting. He preached to them independence, skill with weapons, and the quest for desire over duty in the realm of love. For this, the Sand Snakes cherished their father, even though none were his true-born descendants. Oberyn was every bit a prince on the battlefield and in the royal tourneys. He sported a pale red cloak, a shirt of overlapping copper discs that glittered in the sun, and a helm that was gilded and held a copper sun on the brow. In one hand he held his colorful shield, made of red gold, white gold, yellow gold, and copper, finely polished, and in the other a spear or sword, surely dipped in a poison of his choosing. In a tourney at Storm's End, the younger Prince of Dorne was unhorsed by both Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Sir Barristan Selmy, which, while unfortunate, surely brought little shame to his name. But the time for games was at an end, for Robert's rebellion was at hand. Oberyn's whereabouts during the uprising were generally unknown, but his house suffered greatly for their relationship with House Targaryen. For when Lord Tywin Lannister joined up with Robert Baratheon the Usurper and orchestrated the sack of King's Landing, Princess Elia Martell was ravaged and killed by Sir Gregor Clegane. The Mountain also supposedly murdered her son Prince Aegon, while his companion Sir Amory Lorque killed Elia's daughter Princess Rhaenys. Oberyn's beloved sister and her 2 children were gone from the world, and in a vicious, unnecessary manner. Filled with grief and rage, Oberyn led the attempt for the whole of Dorne to back Prince Viserys Targaryen, who'd been pushed to exile, but was talked down by the new Hand of the King, Lord Jon Arryn. But Oberyn neither forgave nor forgot what the Lannisters and their men had done, and sat in wait in the Dornish capital of Sunspear. Throughout Robert Baratheon's remaining years on the Iron Throne, Oberyn Martell continued to cause trouble as he had all his life. In a tourney, he unseated the heir to Highgarden, Willis Tyrell, whose foot got caught in the stirrup as he fell. When the dust cleared, Willis's horse had fallen on top of him and crushed his leg, crippling the man. Tempers flared, and the ancient feud between the houses Tyrell and Martell resurfaced, though Oberyn and Willis quickly made peace and even became good friends. But while he put on a cooperative face to the rest of Westeros, Oberyn worked in secret with his older brother Doran to someday place a Targaryen back on the Iron Throne. For years they plotted and schemed to overthrow Robert Baratheon and bring an end to House Lannister, and they eventually created what they felt was an adequate plan. Prince Oberyn sailed across the narrow sea to the port city where Sir Willem Darry sat in hiding with Prince Viserys and Princess Daenerys Targaryen. With the Sea Lord of Braavos as an official and certified witness, Oberyn and Sir Willem formed a pact. Prince Viserys would be wed to Princess Oberyn Martell, and when the young dragon came calling, Dorne would rise to his side. Satisfied enough, Oberyn returned home. He was made acting protector of Sunspear, as his brother Doran retired to the Water Gardens to ease his failing health. There, the Viper remained for some time, until the small council of King Joffrey Baratheon held an open seat for a royal man of Dorne. Oberyn Martell first appears in the ongoing story of A Song of Ice and Fire in Book 3, A Storm of Swords. The Prince of Dorne arrives in King's Landing to take his brother's place on King Joffrey's small council, and also to finally exact revenge for poor Elia, as was promised by former Hand of the King Tyrion Lannister. Every time the Viper encounters the dwarf, he questions when justice will occur, but Tyrion has no answers. No longer is he the Hand of the King, as that position has been assumed by his father, Lord Tywin Lannister. Tywin knows of Oberyn's true intentions and plans on lying to the man by claiming Sir Amory Lorque committed the heinous deeds all on his own. It would be a convenient lie for the patriarch of House Lannister, for Sir Amory is dead, and Tywin would get to keep his useful bannerman, the Mountain. Oberyn attends Joffrey's wedding and witnesses the boy's grisly death. Tyrion Lannister is accused and arrested for the murder, and Oberyn is chosen as one of the judges for his trial, along with Lord Tywin and Lord Mace Tyrell. The day before Tyrion's judgment, Oberyn visits the Imp and offers to be his champion in a trial by combat, as the opposing champion in such a scenario is confirmed to be none other than Sir Gregor Clegane. Oberyn has one condition, however, explaining to Tyrion that he must know the truth behind the death of his sister. Tyrion obliges, though leaving out his father Tywin's involvement. The dwarf informs Oberyn that it was indeed Sir Gregor who killed Elia and young Aegon, and Sir Amory that cut down the girl Rhaenys. The Viper departs, more steeled in his resolve than ever before. At the trial, Tyrion soon sees that the witness testimonies are all against him, and that the law of the land alone will provide him with no aid. So, he publicly demands a trial by combat, as the Viper had advised, and Oberyn rises to take his place as Tyrion's champion. Lord Tywin grants the request, though with a heavy heart, for he's on the verge of being outsmarted by the Red Viper of Dorne. With the duel looming, Tyrion visits Oberyn the next morning. The Prince of Dorne plans to fight using only light armor and a spear. He exudes confidence, though Tyrion is unsure about his weapon choice. Oberyn warns him to avoid touching the spear at all costs, but then the talk between the two men turns brighter. Oberyn invites Tyrion to Dorne once the ordeal of the trial by combat is over, and even speaks of crowning Princess Myrcella Baratheon, who is in Sunspear as a ward by Tyrion's own order. Then, Oberyn tells Tyrion of the time he visited Casterly Rock in his earlier days as Elia searched Westeros for a husband. Tyrion listens intently as Oberyn speaks of the dwarf's late mother, Lady Joanna, and her plan to marry one of her elder children to one of the royal children of Dorne. He explains that Lord Tywin had refused, believing Cersei would marry Prince Rhaegar, and that Elia's marriage to the same Rhaegar may have been the catalyst behind her untimely death. Oberyn declares he will have victory and justice this day, something for which he has waited many years. The battle between the Mountain and the Viper ensues, and it is a tense and ferocious duel, possibly one of the most memorable in the history of Westeros. Sir Gregor lumbers about in his hulking plate armor, allowing Oberyn to dance out of danger at almost every turn. Oberyn lands a few blows with his spear in the openings in the Mountain's armor, and even severs the man's hamstring as he tires. Clearly gaining the upper hand, Oberyn plunges his spear into Ser Gregor's belly, and it snaps from the force of the strike. The mountain falls to the ground, but instead of finishing the job, Oberyn demands the man admit his guilt of the murder of Princess Elia and her children. In his quest for total, unquestionable revenge, Oberyn lets the mountain live just long enough. Ser Gregor grabs the viper's leg and sends him sprawling on his back. The mountain proceeds to punch Oberyn with an armored fist to an unprotected face, smashing the Dornishman's teeth and mutilating his eyes. Beating at Oberyn with his monstrous strength, the mountain smashes the skull of his foe, but only after he finally admits to the deeds of which he has been accused since the end of the Targaryens in Westeros. Oberyn Martell is dead. In A Feast for Crows, however, the Viper achieves revenge from beyond the grave. The spear he'd so questionably chosen as his weapon for the duel was dipped in poison, and Ser Gregor suffers greatly before succumbing to death beneath the Red Keep. Back in Dorne, Oberyn's bastard daughters are so distraught that their uncle is forced to confine them lest they continue the cycle of vengeance to which their father was so committed. In A Dance with Dragons, the mountain skull is finally delivered to Oberyn's remaining family in Sunspear as consolation for all they had lost at the hands of Ser Gregor Clegane. Oberyn Martell exemplifies a classic case of what happens when revenge becomes the only driving factor in a man. Consumed by grief over the murder of his sister, who was his dearest friend, and her children, Oberyn acts on the outside with somber surrender after his consultation with Lord Jon Arryn, but beneath the surface, the yearning for vengeance boils. For years, Oberyn and his older brother secretly plot against the ruling parties of Westeros, who were previously but a band of rebel lords, even going so far as to prepare alliances with the only remaining Targaryens to aid in their return from across the Narrow Sea. Though those plans have yet to come to fruition, and may never do so, Oberyn managed to get his revenge at least in part, but it cost him his very life. Oberyn throws himself into single combat with a man feared above all others. It is stated that he represents Tyrion Lannister in the trial by combat, but the Dornish prince has no loyalty to the imp. His loyalty lies only in vengeance, or at least the chance at it. Sir Amory Lorque, who killed Oberyn's niece, Princess Rhaenys, is dead before he gains the opportunity to reach him, but the mountain is well within reach. Oberyn slathers poison across the blade of his spear, as he always does, and goes about his work. But even when he has beaten Ser Gregor, sending him sprawling to the dust with a spear in his gut and venom in his veins, it is not enough. The Viper will only be satisfied when the brute admits his guilt and proclaims his vile actions for all the world to hear. Blinded by this arrogant quest for revenge that couldn't be denied by anyone in the Seven Kingdoms, Oberyn makes his largest misstep in a literal and figurative sense. He comes within reach of the fallen mountain, and Ser Gregor pulls him to the ground. As he bashes in the Dornishman's skull, he fulfills Oberyn's last request. And as time progresses, the poison works away at the mountain until he too is dead. Oberyn had accomplished his goal, had gotten his revenge, but only by paying the ultimate price. Though his sister and her reputation meant much to Oberyn, it was not as though he had nothing left to live for after her death. He had 8 daughters whom he loved dearly, luxury and duty awaiting him in Dorne, and all the pleasures of the flesh he could ever desire. But none of those things were as important to him as revenge and the justice that comes with it. Oberyn pursued that single desire up until the moment it killed him, and in the end achieved revenge. Ser Gregor Clegane died of the festering wounds brought about by the Viper and his poison, and even Lord Tywin Lannister later met his end by a crossbow bolt to the bowels fired by his own son Tyrion. Oberyn can hardly be blamed, really. It is not so easy to forget or forgive when heinous acts are committed with one's sister as the victim, and the longer revenge stews in the mind, the more it consumes. Oberyn was consumed fully by it, and his outward facade of a carefree, boisterous prince was just a false face. Beneath it, the viper had boiled in thoughts of final justice. Either in some burning hell or in heaven with the gods, Oberyn Martell can finally rest. All three of the wicked men he'd marked for death were gone, and he even had a hand in bringing down the vilest of them all. Since the days of Robert's Rebellion, Dorne had been the quietest of the Seven Kingdoms in the Game of Thrones. At least it appeared that way to the other great houses. But House Martell plotted vengeance, and at its helm was none other than Oberyn Martell. Through his study and use of poison, his wit, and his undying quest for revenge, Oberyn accomplished his task. His life was the price, but he pushed on nonetheless. As evident in all his actions, words, and thoughts, Oberyn Martell desires revenge above all. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. So, like always, I will see you next time.